Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has won a landslide victory in the race to lead his Likud party. Final results showed him re-elected with 72.5% of the vote after a challenge from former cabinet minister Gideon Sa'ar. It's a much-needed boost for the Prime Minister, who was indicted on bribery and fraud charges in November. Netanyahu will lead the party into Israel's third election in less than a year after no party was able to form a government. Bloomberg's Michael Arnold joins us now, formerly our bureau chief in Israel. Michael, what's the significance of this latest win for Netanyahu?
Well, I think, what it shows is the extent of his grip on the Likud party, so that even though he's now led them to two inconclusive elections where he was unable to put together a government, and we saw this kind of unprecedented challenge to his leadership. The fact that he was able to win, with such overwhelming support shows that there really is not an appetite in the party to depose him, and it's going to be Netanyahu leading the party for the next election, too.
We're heading into a third election in under a year. Does this give us any clues as to how that's going to go?
Yes, what I think it says is that we're headed probably for another deadlock. What we saw last time was that Netanyahu succeeded in forming this gigantic block of right-wing parties, 55 seats that were all kind of pledged to one another, so he could negotiate at the head of a block. He wasn't quite able to get past the finish line, but I think, unless there's a marked change in his legal predicament between now and March, we're heading for a similar type of situation where neither the right nor the left can form a government. I think, the opposition head now, Benny Gantz, is going to have to think really seriously about broadening his own coalition to include the Labor Party, Meretz, perhaps some of the Arab parties. But if he wants to overcome Netanyahu's right-wing bloc, he's going to have to do the same thing on the left of the Israeli political spectrum as well.
What does Netanyahu's victory mean for the chances of peace in the region? I mean, Israel has certainly, for Israelis, been a very secure place over the decade that he's led the country. Is that going to continue? Is that to continue?
Well, what I think is interesting is that there's actually very little difference in the diplomatic plans between Netanyahu and Gantz. Both of them say that there's not a real partner for peace on the Palestinian side. Both of them see a high chance of war with Iran. Two things come up. One is the possibility that Netanyahu, if he feels that his grip on power is slipping, could precipitate some kind of military engagement. Generally, Israeli prime ministers have avoided that because, that's been a route to being tossed out of office if you cause unnecessary wars. But if he's feeling desperate, who knows what he might do. The other thing is that he's been talking more and more about the possibility of annexing some land in the West Bank, which is something that appeals to his right-wing voters. So I think as the next election gets closer, there's a chance that we could see some kind of dramatic announcement, especially regarding the West Bank.